how you feel about this situation with Shedeur Sanders, him getting drafted in the fifth round?
The Shedeur Sanders scandal, as I'm going to call it, not a scandal on his part, but a scandal on the racist NFL part, to me is a reminder to every black man in America. No matter how rich, no matter how wealthy, no matter how famous, you are still a ninja in this society. And you better never forget that. First of all, Shedeur Sanders was my favorite college football player for the past couple of years. He's probably going to be my second favorite football player behind Jalen Hurts. I even heard that the Eagles were interested in him, but I believe, allegedly, that the NFL owners got together, and I do believe, unlike my good brother Stephen A. Smith, and I do believe, unlike my good brother Stephen A. Smith, that NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, I believe, allegedly, was also involved in on this scandal to embarrass, humiliate, and sabotage both Deion Sanders and his son Shedeur on draft day. I believe that all 32 NFL team owners and their executives and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, I believe they all came together in a KK Ku Klux Klan type of clandestine meeting, and they decided, allegedly, I believe, that they were going to embarrass, humiliate, and sabotage both Deion Sanders and his son, Shedeur Sanders, on draft day. Everybody who is anybody, Art, in the world of sports, whether you are amateur, novice, professional, expert, everyone had Shedeur Sanders being picked in the top 10. Nobody had him sliding out of the top 25. Nobody, anywhere, anyhow, had Shedeur Sanders out of the top 25. Most had him in the 10. Some people, like myself, had him in the top 3. Some had him as number 1. Because as you know, the quarterback position is one of the toughest positions to fill on any football team, let alone NFL. Travis Hunter goes twice. Congratulations to Travis. I'm happy for him. Cam Ward, University of Miami. He goes first. Congratulations to Cam Ward. I'm happy for that brother. Wish him the best. Him and Shedeur was really the toss-up for number 1. Who would be 1? Who would be 2? Him, Shedeur, and Travis were assumed to be the top 3 picks. However order they came, most people thought Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. So we're watching the NFL draft. And by the way, everybody watched the draft to see where Shedeur was going. Cam Ward went 1. Travis went 2. The only person left, Art, to watch to see where they fell was who? Shedeur Sanders. So guess what? No team selected him in the first round. Even teams that needed a starting quarterback and teams that needed a good backup quarterback. Second round comes. No teams again. Third round comes. No teams again. Fourth round comes. No teams again. And then in the fifth round, Art, Shedeur Sanders, one of the easily top 5 best football players in college last year, the only quarterback, the only one last year, Art, to complete 80% of his passes, an FBS record. Shedeur Sanders was the only quarterback to complete 80% of his passes in the entire FBS, and he doesn't get selected until number 144. 144. He was at the bottom of the first half of all of those who were drafted. Out of 230-something draftees, Shedeur comes in at 144. Nobody can convince anybody that Shedeur was only the 144th best player in this year's draft. You know what this was, Art? This was the NFL plantation slave masters. This was the NFL's plantation slave masters coming together to remind Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, and Black America that you have no say-so here. You have no power here. And if you ever think that you are our equal, we will destroy you. Art, by sabotaging Shedeur and pushing him to the 5th round, they sabotaged his pay. They sabotaged his pay. A top 3 pick in the NFL draft is guaranteed, Art, usually to get a contract worth at least $40 million. Easily. Top 3 pick, $40 million or greater. Shedeur ends up number 144 of the 5th round. He may get a $4-5 million pick. In the grand scheme of things, not a big deal, Art. Why? He already has an NIL deal. His father just signed a nice contract. His brother Shiloh, I believe, is a walk-on at Tampa Bay. They're going to be all right. They're not hurting for money, but that's not the point, Art. They had no right to embarrass and humiliate and sabotage the Sanders family like the way that they did. Now, everybody knows I did not appreciate the way Deion Sanders left Jackson State. Everybody knows I did not appreciate the way Deion Sanders left HBCU Jackson State. But that's in the past now. We can't do nothing about it. I stand in solidarity with the Sanders family over this because this is wrong. And whether it's Shannon Sharpe or Carmelo Anthony or Shedeur Sanders, an attack on any black man is an attack on every black man. This was wrong. And I'm hoping that Deion and Shedeur will sue the NFL for racial discrimination and collusion against Shedeur on draft day. This ain't the end of this, Art. They need to sue. Do not let this go, Deion. Do not let this go, Shedeur. Do not let this go. Because guess what, Art? What better karma could Shedeur get from this than to sue the NFL and get all $40+ million back that they robbed from him on draft day? Think about it, Art. If he sues and wins, he will get all of the $40+ million they robbed from him on draft day, plus a whole lot more. And he can change the rules to make sure this never happens again. I know he don't want to do that. I know Deion Sanders is not the activist athlete that Muhammad Ali or Colin Kaepernick were. I understand that. But Deion, you might got to go RBG on this one. You might got to go straight Black Panther on this one because what they did to your son was unacceptable. And Deion was quoted. Somebody said, maybe this was God's will or something to that effect. And Deion Sanders said, this wasn't God. This was nothing but the devil. This wasn't God. This was nothing but the devil. And Deion is right. So why did they do this, Art? Why did the NFL plantation do this? Because the slave masters felt like they needed to remind the slaves who's in charge of the plantation. See, let's understand something, Art. Deion Sanders is the greatest defensive back in NFL history. He's one of the greatest athletes America has ever seen. Deion Sanders is the only human being to ever play in a World Series and a Super Bowl. Let me say that again. Deion Sanders is the only human being that I'm aware of to have played in the World Series of baseball and the Super Bowl of the NFL. He won 2 rings. He won one of those rings for the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. And yet the owner of the Dallas Cowboys didn't see fit to speak up and speak out about one of his players, former players, who won him a Super Bowl. But that's neither here or there. This shows Black America, Art, that white folks always stick together when they feel like their power is threatened. See, they never got a chance. They never got a chance to punish Deion as a player. Deion was his own man. He said how he felt. He did what he wanted to do. He survived the plantation. And then he got the audacity to end up at the University of Colorado, which I didn't support and really don't now, but I want him to be successful because what has happened has happened. But he's at the University of Colorado, takes them to a winning record in a bowl game in 2 years. He signs a new contract that's worth more than what a lot of coaches are making in the NFL. And as a college team, not even a top 10 team, Deion Sanders is getting more media coverage and game day coverage than NFL teams. They hate Deion. They don't like Deion. And they wanted to humble Deion. But what was so sad and classless about this, Art? What was so sad and classless about this, Art? They did it through his son. This wasn't about Shedeur. This was about Deion. This wasn't about Shedeur. This was about Deion. This was about showing Shedeur, Shiloh, and the entire Black America who loves Deion Sanders. This was about showing the slaves who runs this plantation. And they did it in such demonic form, diabolical form, and they didn't stop there, Art. They had the audacity to let the son of the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons, a team that Deion Sanders helped put on the map. Look at this. They let the son, the 21-year-old son of the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons, an NFL team that Deion helped to make popular, and his son prank called Shedeur on draft day. How disgusting is that? And then the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons in the Atlanta Falcons organization, they apologize, right? But I ain't heard nothing about no punishment, Art. I don't give a damn about no apologies from white folks. I don't give a damn about no apologies from white folks. What is the punishment for the Atlanta Falcons for letting that happen? What is the punishment for the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons for letting that happen? And what is the punishment for that boy? Because, Art, you're not going to convince me that that boy didn't tell a lie when he said, allegedly, I saw the phone number on my father's iPad. I saw Shedeur Sanders' phone number on my father's iPad, and I wrote it down and did the prank call. So you mean to tell me you didn't get permission from your father to take Shedeur's number? You mean to tell me your father didn't know you took Shedeur's number? Shedeur said, Art, that was a new phone. Shedeur said, I just got the phone. He only had the phone for 1 or 2 days, maybe 3. How in the hell did you get the new number in 3 days? Your father gave it to you. Your father gave it to you. But your father don't want to get in trouble because he works for the NFL and you don't work for the NFL. So it only makes sense to blame you. And now to cover the story up, Art, now they're saying other players were prank called. Now they're saying white player. You know why they saying that, Art? Because they don't want this to look like what it is. They saying that, Art, because they don't want this to look like the racist attack that it is on the Sanders family. That's what this was about. Ain't nobody else get no prank call. This was for Shedeur. But y'all have to make it look like it was draft wide so it doesn't look like racial discrimination. I hope they sue, Art. And then on top of that, damage control. Damage control. Now they got executives from the different NFL teams, Art. Now they got executives, Art, from the different NFL teams saying, well, reports are coming out. Reports are coming out that Shedeur Sanders didn't do well during his interview. They said he kind of finessed the interview. They said that if he wasn't interested in the team, he didn't even act like he wanted to answer their questions. I don't believe that at all, Art. All of that is made up. Stop lying, white people. Stop lying, black people. This was an outright attack on Deion Sanders for being unapologetic, for being confident, for being proud, for being a self-made man, or for training his son to do the same. In the NFL, Art, they don't like players who come from two-parent homes. They don't like players with strong fathers in their life. Now, LeVar Ball was a big mouth. LeVar Ball was braggadocious, but LeVar Ball was a proud father who cared about his sons, and so they attacked him. Deion Sanders is a proud father who cared about his son. They don't want you to have no daddy. They want you to view your coach as your dad. They want you to be like any other slave on the plantation, emotionally dependent on your white daddy, psychologically dependent on your white daddy, and financially dependent on your white daddy. They don't like athletes with strong black fathers, and Deion Sanders just isn't a strong black father, Art. He's one of the greatest to ever do it and is a coach now himself. That made these white men insecure. That made these white men jealous. They hate Deion for being confident. This ain't about being cocky. This is about being confident. What is the original sin of the black man in white America? To be more confident in yourself than a Caucasian is in himself. Black men who are more confident in themselves than white men are in their own selves are considered a threat. Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders were a threat to the NFL power structure, and so they sabotaged that boy. And you know another reason why they did this, Art? Not only to mess with his money, not only to embarrass his father, but they also did this to keep everybody tuned into the draft day after day after day. Let me ask you a question, Art. How many people you think watching the NFL draft after Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Shedeur Sanders are drafted number 1, 2, and 3? How many people you think still watching the draft after that? Nobody. They're going to turn on the NBA playoffs, right? So guess what? This was two birds with one stone, Art. This was two birds with one stone. We're going to humiliate Deion. We're going to humiliate his son. And guess what? We're going to keep the whole world tuned into draft day because everybody wants to see where Shedeur lands. They used Shedeur, Art. They used him as a pawn for media ratings to make money off Shedeur, and then have the audacity to turn around and not even pay Shedeur the money he's worth. How dare you use that boy to keep everybody tuned into the draft? How dare you use that boy to keep everybody tuned into their TV watching the NFL draft and then rob him of his financial payday? I hope Deion and Shedeur sues. Whether they do it now, whether they do it tomorrow, they need to sue. Pay them back, Shedeur. And if that means you got to go and be the quarterback coach for your father at Colorado, and I know how much he wants to play in the NFL, but I believe he can win the lawsuit and still play, Art. See, when they talk about Deion being arrogant and talking about where his sons ain't going to play and he going to control where his sons go, time out. Archie Manning did the same thing, Art. Archie Manning, Peyton and Eli's father, did the same thing. Archie Manning talked about where his sons, he ain't really want his sons to go. Peyton Manning talked about the teams he would rather play for. So why was it okay for Archie Manning, the white man, to direct his son's NFL destiny? Why was it okay for Archie Manning, the white man, to control Peyton and Eli's destiny in the NFL? But now you have a black man, Coach Prime, doing the same thing Archie Manning did, and now it's a problem. Now it's a threat. Whenever a black man is confident, he's considered cocky. Whenever a black man is confident, he's considered arrogant. And this stunt that they pulled on Deion and Shedeur Sanders is just a reminder to black people that we don't matter. They are the slave masters, and they're going to do whatever they feel like doing. And then Donald Trump tweets out that the NFL owners are stupid for not drafting Shedeur. He was right, President Trump. But did you call Roger Goodell and say, Roger Goodell, if y'all don't fix this draft and fix it quick, the United States Department of Justice is going to be investigating the NFL for collusion and racial discrimination against the Sanders family on draft day. Do you feel me, Art? Donald Trump, if you are such a big Shedeur Sanders fan, Donald Trump, if you are such a big Shedeur Sanders fan, why didn't you pick up the phone and call Roger Goodell? Because you was at the Super Bowl, so you follow this situation. You made the tweet about Shedeur, so you follow this situation. Why didn't you pick up the phone and tell the NFL, y'all better fix this? Because if you don't, the United States Department of Justice is going to be investigating the NFL. People might go to jail behind this because you know you can go to jail behind this, Art. This ain't just no fine. What they did to Shedeur, that's prison time worthy. What they did to Deion on draft day, that's prison time worthy. And I hope to God that Deion and his son sues the NFL so they know we ain't nobody to F with. See, Art, Willie Lynch was a slave master who may not have existed, but the science of the Willie Lynch letter is 100% exact. And Willie Lynch was brought to the James River, Richmond, Virginia in 1712 to teach the slave masters how to control their slaves. After he told them about how to use blacks to work against each other, he then told them how to control blacks, and the number one weapon, Art, was fear. He said, get the biggest, meanest, most respected black man on your plantation. Bring him out in front of all the other blacks, Deion and Shedeur Sanders on draft day. Whip him, beat him, tar and feather him, humiliate him in front of the entire plantation of slaves. In front of the entire plantation of slaves. And if you beat him down enough, if you shame him enough on the plantation in front of all the other slaves, they won't look up to him no more. His woman won't look up to him no more. In fact, the woman, being so ashamed of what you did to the husband, will raise the son to not be a man, but to be a coward, so he never faces the same shame and humiliation as his father. Now, what they did on draft day is not going to affect Shedeur and Deion like that because they too strong. But the example of Willie Lynch, Art, this whole notion of white men, because they've done this all throughout history. They've done this all throughout history. Whenever you have a strong black personality that's respected by young black men, you got to make an example out of them in order to put the plantation back in check. I'm hoping Deion and Shedeur sues. Shedeur, hold your head. I do think God is going to bless you some way, somehow. You definitely got the talent. People talking about Tom Brady was drafted 199th or 98th, but Tom Brady did not come out of college the way Shedeur came out of college. But will Shedeur still shine? Of course he is. But that does not eliminate the fact that those white supremacists, those 32 owners, and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell allegedly colluded this and engaged in racial discrimination. They broke the law, and I hope they are sued for it. Black power.
But why not embrace him though? I mean, he could do a lot for the league. He a big name, so he gonna bring a lot of money in.
White power. Confidence, Art. You're not supposed to be confident. Remember what I said. They want you emotionally dependent on them. They want you psychologically dependent on them. Your coach is supposed to be your metaphorical dad. Your coach is supposed to be your athletic father. Your coach is supposed to be your symbolic parent. They don't want no Deion in the middle. They don't want no LeVar Ball in the middle. They didn't mind Archie Manning because he had the complexion of protection. But they didn't want that. Shedeur coming into the NFL with his own money, his own brand, his own name, and a father who's a coach and one of the greatest to ever do it. They can't stand Deion. Deion Sanders ain't do nothing wrong but be proud to be Deion Sanders. Shedeur didn't do nothing wrong but be proud to be Shedeur. And now Shiloh had to fire his father from being his agent. Not that he fired him, but they had to separate because if he kept Deion on as his agent, they would sabotage his career. This was the NFL's humiliation ritual for the Sanders family, and I hope they sue their ass and throw it back in their face.